All right. Absolutely Notforthe Meek is returned. I just had to chime in and go through this breakfast club with Larry Elder, how he destroyed them, which I do believe he did a good job. But even Larry Elder is not perfect, and it's a shame that he, just like these buffoons that he's talking to, that project uh, this ignorance of not knowing what the hell is really going on in the world. Uh, Larry Elder is definitely more smarter and definitely more logical, but I find some of his facts off. But agree to disagree. So uh, this most likely will be my meme cover and everything with me here with Larry Elder, the legend. Anyway, let's go to we're gonna chop through this thing because these people kind of get me sick. They promote this nationalized ignorant radio shows. Them and what's that corny ass comedian Ricky Smiley, the ghetto channels and everything like that promoting. Oh, get your payday loans and stuff like that. They pretty much destroy our community and everything like that. So I will be skimming through this. Let's go.
Wake that ass up.
Early in the morning.
The Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
Big boy. Oh,
Angie Martinez.
A guy named Arthur Godfrey.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's jump right into it. Why are you running for president?
Well, I'm running as an America First mega guy, and we have an America First mega guy running, obviously. So the question is, what do you bring to the table? Lots of things that are going on: systemic racism, poverty. 25% of white kids enter the world today without a father in the home, married to the mother. And the stats are clear. Even Barack Obama once cited them. If you're raised without a dad, you're 5 times more likely to be poor and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of school, and 20 times more likely to end up in jail. What's happened? In the mid-'60s, with I think the best of intentions, a Democrat named Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty. And since then, we have incentivized women to marry the government and incentivized men to abandon their financial and moral responsibility. When I say this to people, the pushback I get is, well, there are lots of things that are going on: systemic racism, poverty. Here's the problem. If you look at a young black male aged 10 to 43, that's young to me because I'm 71 years old. A young black...
Did he just say he's 71 years old? Lord have mercy. This guy looks awesome. God damn. I need to find out his diet. What is this guy eating? What the hell? How hard is this guy working out in the gym? This guy looks magnificent. Whew.
Black man in that demo is 13 times more likely to be murdered than a young white man, same demo. Young black man, real young, 19 and under, the number one cause of preventable death is homicide, almost always at the hands of another young black male. Same demo for whites, the number one cause of preventable death is unintentional deaths. That includes drug overdoses, automobile accidents, drownings. It's not until they get to number 4 that death is the cause. In America, 60% of the shootings, the robberies, and the homicides are committed by black people, often against other black people. Of the homicides in this country, half of them are black victims, almost all killed by other blacks. How do you explain that if it isn't for the absence of fathers? Are you prepared to say black people are just genetically inclined to commit more crime? I doubt it. And the go-to reaction often is poverty and systemic racism. Here's the problem. 1940, when there was blatant racism, this is before Brown versus Board of Education, before the Civil Rights Act of '64, KKK was still alive and well, 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. Now it's about 14%. You can't blame it on poverty. You can't blame it on racism. It is the breakdown of the nuclear intact family, and neither side is talking about it. The left doesn't talk about it because they caused it with the welfare state, and our side does not talk about it because if you're white, you'll be accused of dissing single moms who are heroically raising these kids, or you'll be accused of being a racist, or if you're black, you'll be accused, as I was by the LA Times, of being the black face of white supremacy. Nobody's talking about that. I am.
What are the reasons, if your statistics are right, what are the reasons that you think fathers aren't in the home?
As I said, it's because in the mid-'60s, Lyndon Johnson launched what he called the War on Poverty. In Charlemagne, literally, they sent social workers door to door in the inner city. I remember this, advising women of the availability of welfare provided there was no man in the house. It created an economic incentive for women to marry the government. Same thing with whites. In 1965, 8% of whites entered the world without a father in the home married to the mother. Now it's about 25%, also up threefold. Look at census data, 1910, 1920, 1930, in places like Milwaukee, Chicago, Philadelphia, a young black kid was slightly more likely to be brought into a world with a father in the home married to the mother than a young white kid. We have incentivized this kind of bad behavior, and it's had a disproportionately bad effect on the black community.
Let me ask you a question. What do white people do wrong, Larry Elder?
What do you mean, what do white people do? I'm not worried about white people. I'm worried about what's going on with us.
But if there's this...
Yo, I am convinced that Charlemagne and Envy and this chick are retarded. These are the NPCs. I've been talking about that.
Systemic racism in this country, which we know it is.
No, I don't say there is. You say there is. I don't believe that.
Oh, you don't believe there's
No,
systemic
there
racism?
used to be, obviously. Tell me what you think the number one systemic example of systemic racism is in America.
Oh man, there's so many.
Just give me the most important one you think.
At the top of mind, I'd probably maybe say mass incarceration. Maybe.
Really? During the Great Depression, when 50% of black adults were unemployed, you didn't have this kind of mass incarceration. It's the breakdown of the family.
I'm not going to.
I would say both. I say there's systemic racism, and the systemic racism caused the breakdown of the family. The systemic COINTELPRO created the feminism movement, and the white women brought in black women who were having no problems in their home, made them out like they were the victims of their men, which they weren't. And what is all done is destroy both households, white and black.
I agree with the family part. I'm a black man who is a father to his children, and I'm a happily married black man to a black woman. So I'm never going to argue with that part, But I just feel like everything is black with you. Black is wrong. Black people do this and black people do that. And when I asked you what white people do wrong, you said you're not worried about white people at all.
I'm talking about the damage, disproportionate damage going on in the black community. For example, look at these smash and grabs that are taking place in Los Angeles, where I live. There's a suburb called Glendale, where at a mall recently, a mob of 30 to 40 people, they had masks on, but one guy got popped. He was black. And I think most of those who were doing this were black. And in recent years and times, there have been a number of these in places like Chicago, places like New York. If I were involved in something like that, Charlemagne, I grew up with a dad, just as you're raising your own children. I would have been more afraid of my father than I would about the cops catching me. These kids are afraid of neither. They don't have a father in the home. Cops are demoralized. They're pulling back. Their manpower is short. And as a result, you tell a bad guy you're less likely to be caught, convicted, incarcerated, crime goes up. They may be criminals, but they're not stupid. When you say, what do white people do? I mean, this is a country that has struggled mightily to get over its historic racism. There was a civil war. There was a big civil rights movement. This is the only majority.
This is another point where I disagree with the elder, because he is very much older than me. The Civil War was not to free slaves. Okay, that was a financial move. The Union was breaking up. That was a power move to destroy the South and take it over, because they had all the resources, they had the money, and the North was in debt. And Europe abolished slavery, but it was still going on here. So what do they want? They want the blacks, the slaves, to participate in the economy. Which you can't have an oppressed people have any type of flourishing growth economically as slaves. So, more people flourish, more things get done, more money is made. States were trying to annex themselves. They couldn't have that. That was some thug moves, as usual.
White country that's ever elected a black president, let alone re-elected a black president. The three biggest cities in America are New York, Chicago, LA. They all have black mayors, even though no city has a majority of black population. The president of Harvard is a black female. Martin Luther King in 1966, Charlemagne, gave an interview to the BBC. This is 2 years after the Civil Rights Act of 64 got passed. And he said, I'm amazed at how many positive changes there have been in America in the last 2 years. Why, if things keep going like this, we could have a black president in about 40 years' time. Mm-hmm. Do the math. Right on cue, Barack Obama, elected 2008. He didn't say there'll be a black female president of Harvard, and there has been. He didn't say there are going to be black CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and there have been several. He didn't say the percentage of the House would equal the percentage of black people in the population, and it does. He didn't say the three largest cities would have black mayors, and they do. He didn't say the largest and most prestigious organization of doctors, the American Medical Association, would have 2 black presidents, and there have been. He didn't say the most prestigious organization of lawyers, the American Bar Association, would have 2 black presidents, and they have. He said president, meaning at that point, I can feel that I've reached the mountaintop, which is the speech he gave right before he got assassinated the day before. And now we act as if Barack Obama never even got elected. And we're still talking about systemic racism. It's not fair. It's wrong. And you're discouraging black people from working hard. 1990s.
Okay. Mr. Elder, a quick question. Let's just remove the word racism, since that seems to be a word that triggers, a conversation down the water hole. Let's just focus on the word system. Okay. You mentioned that the system was the one that discouraged. And again, we have no problem with agreeing that the family, the black family, should certainly has some room for some improvement. But let's just focus on system.
Room for improvement?
System. Well, we're not going to go down that water. We're not going to go down that water hole. Let's get to the question. So the question is, you said that the system encouraged black women to be single mothers, correct?
I said the welfare state, yes.
The welfare, the system. So who's in charge of the system? Who was in charge of the system?
Well, it was Democrats that passed it.
And who were Democrats? Were they black or white at that time?
Well, at the time, majority of black people were Democrats, as the majority of black people are Democrats now.
Not the voters. I'm talking about the system. Remember, the main idea is the word system. Who was in charge of the system at the time? The Democrats at the time, the system. I'm just going to Charlemagne's point about white or black. Was it white Democrats in charge of the system or black Democrats in charge of the system?
Well, if you're prepared to say that Lyndon Johnson did this viciously with an intent to destroy the black family, I disagree. He did it with the best of intentions. And if you look at the New York Times, which is left wing, the Washington Post, which is left wing, they cheered all of this.
Right. And what I'm asking, was it white people? So I'm going to ask again in case my mic's not coming through clearly. Was it white people in charge of the system or black people in charge of that system that helped break down the black family? It's a simple yes, just a simple question, white or black?
Well, you didn't have to go on welfare unless you voluntarily chose to go on welfare. The inducement was put there by Democrats, by the left.
Correct. Okay. Democrats,
most black people were Democrats, and they voted for these white people
Not
too.
voters. I said who's in charge of the system.
Well, who puts them in charge?
Was Lyndon Johnson white or black?
Who put them in charge?
Maybe that'll help you.
Fine. Lyndon Johnson was white.
Thank you.
Okay. But if your argument is that the reason he did it is because of racism, then I disagree. He did it because of.
That's not my argument. I just asked you a simple question: was he white or black, Charlemagne?
And Mr. Elder, you said you talked about the smash and grabs, right?
That female is nasty as all hell. Nasty. Whew. Anyway.
Right, and I find that interesting because, when you see the mass shootings that happen, majority of those people are white males. What do you think about that?
Actually, if you look at the percentage of whites in America, which is 60%, the percentage of mass shooters is under that. The percentage of people that commit hate crime is under that. The percentage of people who are serial killers is under that. Black people are 13% of the population. We commit a greater percentage compared to that of mass shootings.
You specifically talked about the smash and grabs, though. So I was saying, since you're using that as an example, I'm saying, well, what about, the mass shooters that are usually white males?
One more time. They are usually white males because 60% of the country is white. However, they underrepresent in terms of the number of mass shootings. About 50% or so of the mass shootings in this country are committed by white people, even though white people are 60% of the population. They underrepresent. We overrepresent when it comes to hate crime, when it comes to mass shootings, when it comes to serial killings, when it comes to robberies, when it comes to virtually every category of violent crime. We overrepresent.
So what do white people do wrong? I'm gonna keep asking you that because I want.
Well,
like,
it seems to me rather than deal with what's going on, the pathology that's going on in the inner city,
Mm-hmm.
you want me to talk about how bad white people are,
No,
which I don't think is a particularly productive thing to do.
Well, I think there's a cause and effect, but if we can't talk about the cause, which I believe is systemic racism and white supremacy, the FBI says.
Well, I just told you, if it's systemic racism, please explain to me how it was when America really had systemic racism in 1940. 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. Again, this is during Jim Crow era. My father is from Athens, Georgia, grew up in Jim Crow. My mom is from Huntsville, Alabama, grew up in Jim Crow. 87% of blacks live below the poverty line. This is before Brown versus Board of Education. You did not find these kind of black on black crime.
Probably because we had no
choice. But they still were living
below
the poverty line, though, sir.
I'm sorry?
You're forgetting the fact that they were still living below the poverty line. You're picking and choosing, saying this was good, but this was bad.
Okay.
The bottom line, they end between the poverty line. But let's move forward.
Can I just address that? In 1940, 87% of blacks lived under the poverty line. 1960, that number had fallen to 47%. That's a 40-point drop in 20 years. That's the greatest 20-year period of economic expansion for black people in the history of America. Again, well before Brown versus Board of Education, well before the KKK imploded, well before we had race-based preferences. Why? Because it was rare for a black kid to be raised in a family without a father in the home. A strong belief in Judeo-Christian values, a belief in patriotism, even as America wasn't applying these values to black people, obviously, and a belief in entrepreneurship. All those things are now under assault by organizations like Black Lives Matter. Charlemagne, Black Lives Matter had on their website an attack on the nuclear family. The founders are self-described Marxists, trained Marxists. Marx wanted to dethrone God, was an atheist, and Marx did not believe in capitalism, let alone entrepreneurship.
Facts.
All the things that made black people still survive in virulent racism are now under attack by organizations like Black Lives Matter.
All of those things have always been under attack by white supremacy. You can go back to things like whether it's the Tulsa race massacres. Like every time black people do create these systems that are our systems and we are the entrepreneurs, it seems like white supremacy finds a way to destroy it.
Every time, look, the Tulsa massacre, within about 5 years, that whole area was rebuilt.
Hold on. Okay. Let's continue here.
It was not even called the Black Wall Street until after it was rebuilt. And it was rebuilt, by the way, by black people without one dime of government money.
Yeah, but who destroyed it to begin with?
It was racists who destroyed it. No question about it. We've had race riots, but so have Japanese.
So you do agree that there's racism? I'm just so confused.
I never even came close to saying. I never came close to saying there was no racism.
You just saying you don't think it's systemic racism?
Not anymore. Obviously, there was. We had something called slavery. We had something called Jim Crow.
That destroyed black. Hold on, sir. That was system that destroyed. That was the system that destroyed Black Wall Street. It's the same system right now.
This chick just trying to be her, trying to make a name for herself. And she, oh God, this is what's problem. You know what I'm saying? This is what I said in another video where these chicks got kicked out of a restaurant or whatever like that down in Texas. And ain't nobody gonna help you. You got a big enough mouth. Maybe your mouth can help you. Get your mouth to save you.
It's not even wanting to pay those same living descendants, because I know your position on reparations, but those same living descendants of Black Wall Street.
Okay.
And then you move, and then you go on to.
Yeah, that is foul. You know, I live in Oklahoma. I left New York City many a year ago, over a decade. And I found out about Tulsa, Black Wall Street. And they were fighting for, they were suing the state. And I tell you, my daughter wrote an essay on Black Wall Street. And the teacher said, oh, we can't accept this. So, yeah, it's real. They're right, but they're just ignorant. And, I mean, both sides are kind of right, you know? It's all individual opinion. Everything's in gray because guess what? They built back Black Wall Street. Then the government went ahead and did an inclusion. And of course, the white man's ice is better. It's colder. So blacks stopped buying from their own businesses and went and started shopping at white businesses. That's pretty much how Tulsa was destroyed completely. That definitely, and I mean, if you go out there right now, it's bad. But you know, whatever. Let's go.
To say that the system, the quote unquote system, is also trying to destroy President Trump. So I'm just so confused on, do you believe that the system can destroy or not? You pick and choose, sir, and that's what's so confusing to me. You just said it wasn't racism. Now it is racism. When it was time to build it back,
I said it
there
wasn't,
was no racism.
I said it wasn't systemic racism.
He's like, yo, this chick is so ignorant, so nasty. He doesn't want to look in our direction.
Let's talk about.
So what are you just hung up on the word system?
Can I just make this point, Charlamagne, please? Let's take Chinese Americans. Chinese Americans were the first ethnic group to be excluded with an Immigration Act in the late 1800s. They had riots against Chinese in L.A., in San Francisco. There were laws that prevented Chinese Americans from participating in the laundry business. I'm in California. California, of course, rounded up Japanese Americans during World War II. There were laws that prevented Japanese Americans from owning farmland. The average Japanese American household has a higher per capita income than the average white household. The average Chinese American household has a higher per capita income than the average white household. How does that happen? It happens because of a strong belief in family. It is rare for a Chinese American.
Facts. Straight facts on that.
Or a Japanese American kid to have.
But guess what? They don't have that no more. Because they ain't trying to have no kids no more in the first place. The women are like, no, I'm not having no kids. They got a whole bunch of lonely people over there. The Japanese men are lonely. The Japanese women, they get older in age and they become lonely. So, I don't know. Everybody's falling apart.
To have a child outside of wedlock, and a strong belief in education and a strong belief in entrepreneurship. These are the kinds of qualities that make people successful.
You can't blame everything on having a fatherless family, right? Because
I didn't say blaming everything.
I know, but that's what you're saying. You're saying a strong community. But
no, you said that's what I just said. I didn't say that.
You talk about the Asian community. Asian community, it's easy for them to get loans for entrepreneurships. It's easy for them to get loans for houses. You look at our community. Okay. If you really want to talk about our community, right? You look at the schools in our community. Some of our schools are the worst, right? Would you agree with that? Yes or no?
Absolutely. Which is why one of the reasons I'm running for president is for school choice.
Also, would you say that is in our community is
systemic?
Yeah, you know it's funny. They talk about how oppressed the community is when they are the largest source of oppression. They pump poison into the minds of the youth of the people. They're promoting that. That's how they make their money. It's all about the glitz and glam. I mean, this dude right here, which him and his Puerto Rican buddy, which they done defrauded a whole bunch of people, allegedly. I mean, this is his thing. He promoted the dude. Dude owes people money, you know, and also from what I heard, allegedly, that the guy owes him money, but yet he was still promoting him. I think what it was, which he owed him money, and he was promoting him so other people said the guy can make some money to pay him his money. He wanted to get himself out of debt. He wanted to get his money back, right? He was thinking about himself.
It's also in our communities heavy food deserts. There's nothing but fast food places that are just killing and destroying that. Would you say that's true?
Systemic.
Yeah, and in Chicago, they go ahead and destroyed 3 Walmarts, looted them and everything like that. So those Walmarts are closing down, thus for making a food desert. Those are choices. That is the community's choices. I'm not saying that the community is not oppressed, but it's a lot of oppression is from itself, from its own ignorance. I mean, God damn, this is why, you know, both sides, I mean, we got to think better. These people right here are freaking puppets. They are with the norm. They can't see reality. They want to blame somebody. They're not going to take responsibility. It's all somebody else's issue. But yet, the young side of here, they're pushing, it's white supremacy. It's somebody else's fault. We're oppressed. And this older gentleman's like, yo, enough with that. Which we have to take responsibility. But yet, he's not. He got to understand these people are mentally traumatized. Which this is trauma. This trauma has been going down generation by generation. Which they keep on pushing a narrative, COINTELPRO and all that, but they're all going to go talk about that shortly.
Boy.
You mentioned, say that's true. I'm just asking a question.
You said a number of things. I just addressed one of them about loans. Mm-hmm. In 1965, Barack Obama, who was in private practice, joined a bunch of other lawyers to file a class action lawsuit against Citicorp, which is headquartered here in New York. 186 black people were applying for loans for mortgages and didn't get them. And they accused Citicorp of engaging in racism. Mm-hmm. Citicorp said, no, it's not racism. You have poor credit scores, and we want to make sure we get our money back. Obama joined a bunch of other lawyers, and they sued Citicorp in a class action lawsuit. And Citicorp said, okay, to hell with it. Gave them all loans. And they followed them all up. Daily Caller did a few years later. Almost all of them lost their homes. Several of them filed for bankruptcy. One of them even said,
I believe that's one circumstance, because back in the 70s, they were giving predatory loans. So, I mean, he's coming up with one thing that, and by all means, I mean, if nobody knows, I know. I remember when the ninja loans, I was right there when they were just getting anybody. There was this lady, she had nowhere near. She lied about her income and everything just to get into her house. And she was a West Indian woman. And she had to end up renting out all parts of her house, try to pay that mortgage. And it was probably adjustable too. So, I mean, it's just stupid people. People don't teach their children economics, how to handle a checkbook, nothing. Nowadays, you try to teach your kids something, anything like that, then you got your woman on your ass about it. It's pathetic.
When you don't qualify for a loan, maybe we shouldn't get a loan. Well, duh. It wasn't true that black people were not getting loans. Plus, there are all sorts of black-owned community banks around the country, and it turns out the turn-down rate when you apply for a loan at a community bank was even higher because they had less capital and they couldn't afford to loan money to risky people. It is just not the case that the reason for the plight of the black community is because people were not lending money to them. It's just not true.
That's not true. But hold on one second, Charlamagne. But so
what's not true?
You're bringing back facts of 1965, right? Let's talk 2023, right?
I said 1995.
1995. We'll talk 2023, right? My son will be successful in real estate and successful in buying a house. You know why? Because his father owns his house. Because his father owns a house, right? But my father
because of you and the drive because of you and the drive you put into him.
Did not own houses.
Because of you and the drive you put into him.
We're not going to have a conversation.
You're not even appreciating what you've done to your son.
I'm just asking you a question. I just let you speak and I'll let you talk.
Okay.
Y'all can talk.
We have a conversation.
All right.
When we talk about it, right, it's harder for our community to get loans, right? And not just because of poor credit scores. It's because of where the areas are. You talked about the Asian community. A lot of the Asian community have their own banks and they're able to process and get their own banks. There's not too many African American branches that are able to give out money. So that's one. Then let's talk about getting grants for schools. They're not even giving grants for schools at the rate that they're giving grants for white people. And let's talk about when they talk about entrepreneurship. They are giving so much money to these white and Asian kids and Asian people doing it, and 1,000 times less than our community. Will you agree to any of that?
No, I don't. I don't agree with virtually any of what you just now said. The turn down rate for a white applicant for a mortgage is higher than the turn down rate for a Japanese.
You know, that is something what Envy said about what your loans. The whole thing is they're giving foreigners loans to come in and start businesses in our community. It's like a world welfare program. That's how America stays great, because they're giving opportunities for people to come over and get loans, low interest rate, or don't even have to pay back grants, which are to foreigners. They just start businesses and they're sending money home and take care of their family and bringing more members here. They pass that business on to the next people coming in, and they start another one, and they just keep on building like that. You see, but we don't get those loans.
Or a Chinese applicant.
We're not going to get that loan, right?
For a mortgage. Now, are you telling me that banks are discriminating against white and in favor of Asian Americans? It's because their credit scores are better. They often live below their means. They save more, even when they're making the same amount of money than black people do. If you have poor credit score, you're not going to get a loan. Period. End of statement. Even the head of Urban League, a black man, once said that if you have poor credit score, you're not going to get a loan. End of statement.
Sir,
yes.
Let's just okay. when you were talking about crime, you weren't prepared to talk about disproportion. You talked about how it was more Black people that was doing it, and then you talked about how we're the smaller, of the population. The same applies also to the loans. It's more white people than it is Black people. You seem to pick and choose.
I'm talking about the rate. I'm talking about the rate.
Whatever it is, the bottom line is it's more white people than it is Black people. And so if more Black people are not getting loans disproportionately, it seems you'd only want to apply the disproportion to the conversation when it benefits your talking point.
I'm not sure you understood.
Which is why they say.
I'm not sure you understood. I'm not sure you understood my point. That's why I mentioned in 1995 when 186 Black people who were not getting loans filed a class action lawsuit claiming that they were denied the loan because of racism. Citicorp said, okay, here are your loans. The reason I wasn't giving you the loans is because we're afraid you weren't going to be able to pay them back.
I'm not talking about
Fast forward, they weren't able to pay them back, which proved the Citicorp point.
I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about
I know
that.
you're not. Because inconvenient.
I'm talking about your response to Envy when you said more white people get approved for loans.
Since you like numbers, Washington Post said Black Americans have the highest denial rates for purchase and refinance of loans, according to Home Mortgage Disclosures Act.
Because 20% of their credit
Black
score.
And all credit scores are the same. 15% of Hispanic loan applicants were denied, compared with about 11% of white and 10% of Asian applicants with same credit scores. And that's Washington Post, since you love numbers so much, and I know you do love numbers. That's coming from the Washington Post. That's 2023, not 1995.
I can show you a study that says the opposite.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Elder. Donald Trump, Rudy Giuliani, and I'm pretty sure everybody who just caught a RICO with him in Georgia, they all had fathers, and they still ended up in jail. How did that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Nobody said if you have a father, you won't go to jail. Nobody said if you didn't have a father, you were going to jail. My father never.
But guess what you did say, Mr. Elder? I'm sorry, respectfully.
May I answer his question?
Guess what you did say.
May I answer his question?
Let him finish his statement, Ted.
Okay.
My father never knew his biological father. He got thrown out of the house when he was 13 years old. 8th grade dropout, Jim Crow South, Athens, Georgia. Fast forward, my dad cleaned toilets, 2 full-time jobs cleaning toilets when I was growing up. Went to night school to get his GED, and then after that, he went to night school to learn how to operate a small restaurant. Age of 47, my dad saves his nickels and dimes from his job, starts a small restaurant near downtown L.A. Fast forward, he retires in his 80s. He owned that restaurant. He owned property next door, plus the house that's still in our family. Not too shabby for somebody who did not know his biological father. It's not a death sentence. You still have choices. It's just much, much more difficult to raise a child on your own. Even Tupac Shakur said, I know for a fact, I know for a fact, had I had a father, I would have been more confident. I would have been more disciplined. End of quote.
Well, how did all those white men end up in jail when they still had fathers? The Trumps and the Giuliani. I'm just asking the question. How did they end up in jail?
Because some people commit crimes.
No, sir. Stop. My apologies for interrupting you earlier. I just couldn't stomach the answer that I knew you were going to say.
Couldn't stomach the answer?
Yeah, I couldn't stomach, because your actual answer to Trump being what was happening to him with the indictments, you actually said that the system was doing it. You said there was a 2-tier system. This is your words.
That's right.
That it was a 2-tier system. So when it came to Trump, all of a sudden you now believe in this systematic thing that's happening to Trump. But then when it happens to black people,
but it's not about race. It's not about race. I didn't
ask you that. I asked you. Remember, I made it easy for you, and I took race out of it. Remember, I said I'm just talking about the system. I'm just talking about the system.
If you want to ask me whether I believe Donald Trump is being treated the same way as Joe Biden and is being treated the same way as Hillary Clinton, all of these people are white. All these people are white. There's a double standard.
Well,
Mr. Elder, you didn't hear my question.
You said that
you didn't hear my question.
You said some people commit crimes, so you do believe that Trump, Giuliani, they committed a crime.
I don't know.
But you just said some people commit crimes.
I said some people committed a crime. I didn't say Donald Trump committed a crime. If you ask me specifically whether I believe Donald Trump committed a crime, I don't.
I don't. Specifically about those people and why they ended up in jail, and they all got fathers.
Well, Donald Trump is not in jail.
Oh, he got indicted.
Yeah, he got indicted. That's a far cry from being in jail.
Why did he get indicted?
Well, he got arrested, is what I'm saying. He's going to get arrested.
He's been arrested. He got indicted, in my opinion, because the DOJ has a double standard. They let Hillary pass, for example. She clearly violated the Espionage Act by having an unsecured server in her basement. She paid for the Steele dossier. She destroyed 30,000 emails that were under subpoena, and she got a wrist slap. And Donald Trump is now being indicted, I think, for the 4th time. It's unfair.
Right. Black people have been telling y'all how corrupt the FBI is for a long time.
And the FBI has been corrupt. There was COINTEL, the FBI. J. Edgar Hoover also wiretapped MLK under Robert Kennedy, a Democrat Attorney General, Malcolm X. Lots of things. Right. And I find it interesting how the same people who criticize the FBI historically are now defending the FBI because they're going after Donald Trump.
Oh, we're not defending the FBI.
I didn't say you were. I said some of the same people.
We're just looking and saying, damn, finally.
What's your thoughts with Florida? And you see that they're trying to take our history out of these history books and not trying to teach our history. What's your thoughts?
I find it interesting that the Democrats are the ones complaining about Florida. This is a party of slavery, party of Jim Crow, the party of the KKK, the party of the Southern Manifesto, the party of Dred Scott, the party that I said earlier destroyed the nuclear intact family, and the party that is opposing school choice. And now they want to lecture Florida on making sure the proper history of slavery is taught. I don't know anybody who's defending slavery. Anybody. Not Ron DeSantis. He's not defending.
People benefited from slavery.
Actually, you're talking about one line. You're talking about one line in about 127 pages of the study, and it is a line that was repeated almost verbatim in the associated in the advanced placement African American course that the DeSantis administration refused to use because of all the sexual stuff that was in it. It's basically the same thing that was in the advanced placement African American courses, and now because it's in that, all of a sudden the governor is accused of somehow defending slavery. He's not doing anything of the sort.
What did you think about that?
Well, sir, you were actually one that defended slavery. In your comments, you said that, like it or not, slavery was legal in response to reparations. So it's you that was defending slavery, correct?
Defending it and saying that it's illegal are two very different things. Slavery, unfortunately.
That was your response into if reparations should happen. So your response to that was, like it or not, slavery was legal, and one would think that was a defense on those who were asking.
Well, you would think it was a defense, but it is not a defense. Unfortunately, slavery has been part and parcel of human history from the very beginning. Asians enslaved Asians, whites enslaved whites, blacks enslaved blacks, Native Americans enslaved Native Americans. This is a culture, the Western civilization, that had a revulsion against it. We had a civil war against it. And we ought to applaud ourselves for doing something about this. This is a flawed country. It's moving forward.
This is the problem. We argue about bullshit instead of really making moves. Because let me tell you something. They can do all kind of things, but if you get in an industry and you're good at it, it won't matter if you got a criminal record or what. There's felons that cross the border. They go over to Canada, get things done. It don't matter, So unless you got some severe stuff, but I digress. There should be nothing holding you back. You should find your purpose and get it done. There's no sense in crying about your situation. You got to do something.
It's becoming more perfect all the time. Today, if you are born and raised in America, if you finish high school, presumably one where you can read, write, and computer grade level, which is why I support school choice, don't have a kid before you're 20, get married first, get a job, keep a job, don't quit it until you get another job, and avoid the criminal justice system, you will not be poor. And if you don't follow that formula, there's a good chance you will be.
The first GOP debate is coming up, and you didn't qualify, and I saw you right.
Well, you didn't say I've not.
If you live in America, you're already richer than majority of the world. I mean, there's people living in poverty, so everybody should be pretty much grateful for that. But guess what? You can do better. I mean, shit. The welfare chicks, welfare single moms, they're richer than like 70% or 60%. I forgot what the numbers was of the world population.
I've not yet qualified. It's not until August 21.
Oh, okay. Well, I saw you writing the op-ed that the Republican National Committee has rigged the rules of the game by instituting a set of criteria that is so onerous. What is it? Onerous.
Onerous.
And poorly designed.
I mispronounced Tupac, so you mispronounced onerous. That's right. so we're even.
You are really petty, Mr.
And he said, poorly designed that only establishment and billionaire candidates are guaranteed to be on stage. Explain to us why that system hurts people.
Well, I ran for governor of California. I got 3.5 million votes. It seems to me that made me credible.
All right, it's time to go forward.
The RNC is.
Why should a black person vote for you?
Because I'm telling the truth, and the truth existed had it not been for African chieftains who were selling black slaves captured in battle or captured through raids and selling them to European and Arab slavers. It could not have existed without that. So everybody has dirty hands here. That's why reparations is such a foolish thing. If you're going to get reparations from the 5% or so of white people that have some sort of generational connection to slavery, and that's all there is, then you need to go back to Africa and get money from African countries that were involved in the slave trade and in the Arab slave trade. And by the way, the Arab slave trade was even worse than the European slave trade.
You know what the problem is? This is why I say this guy, to be 71 years old, and I don't know if what's wrong with him. He's just sticking to a narrative, or he really believes this shit. But the fact is, what was it, 90, let's say 94% of Africans were sent down to South America and through the West Indies. So, and South America, Brazil, the West Indies, and all those islands and stuff like that. Some got dropped off or whatever, dumped. And only 6% came here to the United States. What happened was they enslaved the natives, us, here on our own land, stole the land, enslaved us, and used the infighting that was going on between the tribes to benefit themselves. That's what's really happened. But, I guess it's too complicated. I don't give a damn how complicated it is. That's just the fact.
90% rate of attrition.
You could look at they have like manifests and stuff like that. And they have the slave routes and stuff like that, the slave ships and everything. They know who went where, and it wasn't here. And a lot of natives here were sent over to Europe. So, as slaves.
Often making men and women walk on barefoot across the Sahara, and the men were castrated. Only about 5.
So if they go after the money from the other countries, then would you agree that it would be okay to go after the money from America? Is that your problem with it?
When are you going to stop with this? Everybody has a grievance.
I just asked a simple question.
I'm answering your.
And another thing is, there should be reparations because there's generational wealth that was lost, which are our people the most deserving of any type of reparations, which are we created things, we've been bamboozled, threatened, extorted, terrorized for hundreds of years. So yes, we should get reparations. We should get the liquor. You already bankrupted every damn thing. You might as well give that money. What does it matter? Because most of the ignorant motherfuckers are going to go ahead and blow the money, and you'll have the money right back. You would have stimulated the economy. But guess what? People that know what time it is, people that know how to play the game, they're going to invest the money, and they're going to be the new wealthy. I know what to do with that money. Shoot, forget these other dummies like the Breakfast Club, what they're going to do.
Question. There's no end. There'll be no end to this because slavery has been part of human history from the very beginning.
Okay, we'll getting money. I've let you talk, sir. I've let you talk, and every time I talk, you begin to talk, and then you say, "Let you finish." So I asked you a very simple question. You said, "If you're going to go after it in America, go after it in Africa." So if we all agree to go after it in Africa, will you then agree to go after it in America? It's just a simple question. Yes or no?
No, I won't because it's a waste of time. We ought to be spending our time on education.
Next question.
Okay. You told me that I cut you off. Then I tried to answer your question. You won't let me finish.
Go ahead, Larry.
Thank you. It's a waste of time. We ought to be talking about working hard, investing.
These people, they speak to a 71-year-old man like this. They so disrespectful, it's unbelievable.
And ourselves. Right now, as we speak, there are Haitians in Haiti lining up for a lottery to come into this country. Why? Because it is the land of the free and the home of the brave. You can go from nothing to something faster in America than any other country in all of human history. We ought to be talking about that. Let me just, one more point. 1997, Time Magazine and CNN hooked up together to do a poll on what black teenagers and white teenagers felt about racism. Mm-hmm. And both of them were asked, is racism a major problem in America? Both of them said yes. But then Time and CNN asked this question of the black teenagers. Is racism a big problem, a small problem, or no problem in your own daily life? This is 1997. 89% of them said small problem or no problem in my own daily life. In fact, twice as many blacks said failure to take advantage of available opportunities is a bigger problem than racism.
That was 1997.
1997. Look it up.
It's 2023, though.
You think America's more racist now after the election and re-election of Barack Obama than it was in 1997?
Yes, because of the election of MAGA, Donald Trump, 100%. Yes.
Really?
Absolutely.
Well, how is it, Charlamagne, that Donald Trump got 8% of the black vote in 2016? He got 12% in 2020, a 50% increase. He got 20% of the black male vote in 2020. If MAGA is racist, how do you explain that Donald Trump substantially increased the percentage of black votes the Republican Party got?
Sometimes people make poor
So why are
choices.
you running against Trump then, Mr. Elder?
Yeah,
I'm not running against him. I'm running against Biden-Harris. Any one of the Republican nominees we have would be better than what we have right now. I'm not running against him. I'm running to put forth the issues I just now mentioned that I've been talking about for the last few minutes.
I want to ask you about that. After 4 indictments, 91 criminal charges, don't you think it would behoove the Republican Party to move on from Donald Trump?
I think that the voters in the primary will make that decision.
What do you think, though?
I have no problem with I thought Donald Trump did an extraordinary job as president, especially for black people. Best economy ever. He did something about the borders. The people that are most hurt because of porous borders are black people living in the inner city, because most of the illegal aliens have little or no education. They end up living in the inner city. They compete against black people with high school or less for jobs. Mm-hmm. There are about 1 million fewer black people working than who would otherwise be working if it weren't for illegal alien labor. And illegal alien labor, according to a study done by the Civil Rights Commission, puts downward pressure to the tune of almost $2,000 per year on the salaries of black people living in the inner city. And Donald Trump gave us the most secure border we ever had. He also supported school choice. He also did the First Step Act, which allowed about 5,000 mostly black men with long criminal sentences, nonviolent, to have their sentences reduced an average of 70 months per. He pardoned Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight champion. Even Barack Obama didn't do that. Yeah, he did an extraordinary job for black people.
I think you're innocent until proven guilty, but I feel like President Biden had 4 indictments, 91 criminal charges. President Obama had 4 indictments, 91 criminal charges. Y'all would be telling them that they need to step aside and they shouldn't be running for president.
Well, I wouldn't vote for Barack Obama or for Joe Biden in any case, no matter whether he had indictments or no indictments. I don't vote for tax spend, regulate liberals.
You're a conservative, right? Obviously.
No question.
What initially made you gravitate towards being a conservative?
I think it was my father. My father was a lifelong Republican, and my father always told my brothers and me the following: Democrats want to give you something for nothing. When you try to get something for nothing, you almost always end up getting nothing for something. And my dad, I told you about his background. He told my brothers and me that hard work wins. You get out of life what you put into it. You cannot control the outcome, Larry, but you are 100% in control of the effort. And before you moan or groan about what somebody did or said to you, go to the nearest mirror, look at it, and ask yourself, what could I have done to change the outcome? And finally, Charlamagne, my dad told my brothers and me this: no matter how hard you work, how good you are, sooner or later, bad stuff is going to happen to you. How you deal with those bad things will tell your mother and me if we raised a man. I wrote a book about my father's life. It's called Dear Father, Dear Son, 2 Lives, 8 Hours. It's about an 8-hour conversation he and I had, where at the beginning of the conversation, I thought my dad...
Oh, my goodness. That was, I know about this and everything like that. He was hating his father for years and everything like that. Let's go find something else here. Okay, let's see if we could get something more here.
Mr. Elder, I know a lot of black conservatives, and I completely agree about the black family. I don't think anybody here objects to that.
Don't disagree about that at all.
I think when you talk about ideology and then you mix in parties and then personalities, it gets kind of confusing. And, you mentioned yourself not to moan and groan, that as long as you work hard, all is well. And I think where the conflict is coming in is you did moan and groan about how the Republicans treated you. You did moan and groan about Governor Newsom and, asking for a recall. You did not leave that up to the voters. You are moaning and groaning when it comes to Donald Trump and how he's being treated. So it just seems to be a hypocrisy. And I don't know if the message would land a little bit better if there was some fairness across the board on Democrats and Republicans. I'm an independent, by the way, and I think both parties are trash. And I think all of us here, see both sides. And that's
a lie. She's not an independent. She was Bernie Sanders advocate, big time. She was campaigning. She was on his campaign. So she's a socialist. She just lied. That's why you can't believe what these fools be saying. Can't believe it.
The part that's just not landing for me. There seems to be an unfairness on both sides with you.
Well, not too surprisingly, I don't agree with your analysis. How is it that I did not leave the recall to the voters? What do you mean by that?
What do you?
You said I didn't leave the recall to the voters.
No. I said you moaned and groaned about it. You said it should be recalled, correct? correct?
I said Gavin Newsom should have been recalled, yes.
Right, that's moaning and groaning.
Well, actually, it's taking advantage of what's in the California Constitution, which is when a certain percentage of voters sign a petition to recall a politician, there can be a recall vote, and there was one, as there was in 2003. We recalled the governor then, and there was in 2021 when I attempted to recall Gavin Newsom. That's part of our democratic process in California.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We agree with that. I'm going to your statement when you said rather than moan about it. A little while ago, you said rather than moan about it, I'm just going to keep doing the hard work. And so I'm just saying that technically is moaning about it because the governor's decided.
I don't follow exactly what you're saying.
It's okay. I didn't expect you to.
Yeah,
but it's
I'm
one moment.
a little slow
one
sometimes.
moment. One moment, yeah, we get it.
Yeah.
One moment you're complaining about the system, and the next minute you're saying the system is fair. The next minute you're saying it's not fair. So that's what I'm saying. There just seems to be a double standard on you and the system, not wanting to be accountable for a system that Black people are not in charge of, by the way, of not wanting to hold both sides accountable when it comes to the system.
Do I believe Hillary was treated differently and Joe Biden treated differently than Donald Trump is being treated? Yes, I do. Is that an indictment about whether or not America is systemically racist? No, it is not. Those are
they're two totally different things.
Yes,
you're
yes, they
trying
are.
to merge the two, but they're two totally different things.
I agree with you. They're two different things. We're agreeing. We're agreeing. They're two different things. We're agreeing.
No, we're agreeing to two different things. We're not agreeing that there's not systematic racism because we're not in charge of the system, sir. In case you
all right. Can we?
Black people have never been in charge of any system.
Well,
we're not
actually, we have been. Take Baltimore.
No, we've never been in charge of
may
any
I finish?
System. Tell me, what financial system are Black people in charge of? What healthcare system are Black people in charge of? What government system are Black people in charge of?
I'm about ready to tell you.
What prison system are Black people in charge?
I'm about ready to tell you.
I'm not talking about mayors. I already know that talking point, sir. I go on Fox News all the time as well. So let's not go there with that. I said, what system have we created? Have we implemented that we have been in charge of? Name one.
She is so important. She goes on Fox News as well. Wow.
Is this why you don't like talking to Black women, Larry Elder?
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Baltimore. Freddie Gray a few years ago.
No. That's mayors. I'm not talking. I said system.
I'm going to tell you about this system if you allow me to finish my point.
I'm not talking about somebody elected and doing a job, sir. I asked what system did we create? What financial system?
Okay, let's talk about the system of one of the largest.
Let him say his point,
thank you. One of the systems of one of the largest cities in America.
She listened to Charlemagne, stupid Charlemagne though, but she won't listen to. Oh my goodness, this is why they won't be protected. They're not protected. This is why. They can protect themselves with their mouth.
America, Baltimore. Freddie Gray died in police custody a few years ago. The mayor was Black. The head of the police department was Black. Number two.
It's not in charge of the system, but go ahead.
Number two person in charge of the police department was Black.
Still not in charge of the
all
system.
of city council, Democrats, majority Black.
Still not in charge of the system.
Wow.
That's a position.
6 officers charged. 3 of them were Black. A judge before whom 2 of the officers tried their case found him not guilty, was Black.
Still not in charge of the system.
The city intendant of public schools was Black. The county superintendent of public schools was Black. The attorney general at the time, Loretta Lynch, is Black, as was the president of the United States, was Black. And yet,
still not in charge of the system. So I asked you a simple question, sir.
Well, Wanda Sykes said when Barack Obama got elected, how are you going to complain about the man when you are the man? Now, from the president to the attorney general to the state attorney to the mayor to the head of the police department to the commissions of the schools in the city and in the county to the majority of city council in that city, all of them are Black. And you're still saying that we don't run anything?
So who's in charge of the system?
No. I said who created the system. I didn't say we didn't run anything. I challenged a lot of those Black leaders, by the way. I said when we talk about the system, what Black people have been in charge of any system. I'm not talking about a position. I'm not talking about a mayor. You know good and well what I'm talking about.
You're basically saying that they're Black faces that are still in those positions.
That she's talking about the Illuminati, sir. The Illuminati that controls the system, who created the system. And we as puppets, as ignorant Negroes, are playing along in the system, destroying our communities. Right?
Correct. Similar to you, Mr. Elder. You're a Black face in a position in the conservative movement. They're just the same. They're just on the other side. I'm talking about
So then when Martin Luther King said in 1966, I believe there could be a Black president in about 40 years' time, then it really doesn't matter whether there's one or isn't. One, because nothing changes.
No, it won't matter because they'll be controlled by the system. That is true.
He was naive. The system also killed him as well. Well, we know that the FBI and the CIA also killed him. That system. You realize that, correct?
Wow. An individual killed him.
Right. That was also a part of Pro Hotel through the system. Correct?
Not correct.
COINTELPRO.
Not correct. He was
so
killed.
The FBI didn't have anything to do with it. The CIA didn't have anything to do with
J.
it.
Edgar Hoover was definitely on Martin's ass. Like, come on.
I didn't say he wasn't. Oh. Robert Kennedy is the one that approved the wiretaps. But to say that the FBI killed him, I mean, what's your evidence?
Which also has said that, this is when it came to Martin Luther King, his past, his deviant behavior followed him to his death. Later on, he tried to be like, oh, I'm taking my people to the burning house, but he was doing all kind of buffoonery. He was hanging around with a whole bunch of pimps, all that bullshit. I mean, damn. So it is what it is. And it's like they told him, they say, yo, man, you aligning with the communists and everything like that, saying we can't really mess with you like that. You got to watch yourself. So, it is what it is.
Of that.
Oh, no,
that's a pretty serious charge.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Pretty serious charge.
Yeah.
Serious charge requires serious evidence.
Yeah.
All our politicians, black leadership is corrupt. There's only one man, and that is Malcolm X. That was good. He was good and upstanding. The only one that I know of. And of course, there's some others that they weren't leaders, but they had knowledge and they spoke to people and everything like that. And, they were killed off. So.
What is your enforcement law proposal?
It is to allow states to set up commissions of retired judges and retired DAs to get rid of these soft on crime, George Soros-backed DAs that are allowing a bunch of bad people on the streets or not charging bad people to the full extent of the law. And the people that, by and large, that are hurt by these people are the very black and brown people living in the inner city. Mm. There's a Larry Krasner is a George Soros-backed DA in Philadelphia. He's been impeached, but this Philadelphia State Senate wouldn't even take up the case. We've had 2 attempts to repeal a soft-on-crime DA in L.A. County, and it hasn't gone through yet. We've got a bunch of, in my opinion, this guy, Alvin Bragg, he ran promising to get Donald Trump, and when he got in, he said the evidence wasn't there, and then one of the former DAs writes a book, accuses Bragg of giving Donald Trump a pass, and all of a sudden, he brings counts against Donald Trump. I think it's unfair.
Do you think members of your party are leaning toward fascism?
Define fascism.
Authoritarianism?
Define fascism.
I mean, the rejection of democracy, the rule of law, and equal rights under the law in favor of a strong man, Donald Trump, who interprets the popular will.
No, I don't. There was a long article about Barack Obama by one of my mentors. His name is Thomas Sowell. He's an economist. He's a black conservative, still alive, around 95 years old. And he wrote a piece in which he said a lot of people call people like Barack Obama socialist. Socialism is government ownership of the means of production. Mm-hmm. Fascism is when the government allows you to own means of production, but government tells you what to do. And he said, frankly, technically, people like Barack Obama are fascists. That is to say, these are left-wing people telling you how to run your business, telling you what to sell, telling you what you can't sell. For example, in California, we have a governor named Gavin Newsom who recently said by the year 2035, no more sale of new gas-powered cars. How dare you? Most people don't want an EV. They like their own gasoline-powered cars, but now you're telling car dealerships they can't even sell them? What do you call that?
But what about, when you tell women what to do with their bodies?
Well, that is a moral issue. I happen to be pro-life, and I believe that...
I'm sorry, y'all, but I'm getting tired of the buffoonery. I'm going to have to get to a closing rant here. Please hold. Okay.
And I think that people should deal with the consequences of their actions. And if you let people know there are consequences to their actions, it will inform their actions and make them behave more responsibly. Anytime you allow bad behavior to continue, you're going to get more bad behavior, whether that's...
So how does that apply to President Trump then? Because you said that was a two-tier system that
because
that's unfair.
I don't believe Donald Trump...
You don't think he did anything?
I don't think he did anything wrong. No, I don't. I believe that he complained about the election the same way Hillary did. Hillary, for 4 years, referred to the 2016 election as having been stolen, her word, not mine. She called Donald Trump illegitimate, her word, not mine. Jay Johnson, who's Obama's DHS secretary, testified under oath that not a single vote tally was changed by the Russians. They tried, but they failed to change a single vote tally. 66% of Democrats believe the Russians changed vote tallies to get Donald Trump elected, even though Jay Johnson testified under oath, not a single one was changed. That's the damage that people like Hillary and former President Jimmy Carter, And Stacey Abrams and Hakeem Jeffries and others have said for years, referring to Donald Trump as illegitimate. A greater percentage of Democrats believe 2016 was stolen than we feel that way about 2020, but yet nobody calls them election deniers and nobody accuses them of undermining our republic. And they're not undermining our republic. They're complaining about an election. You have a right to do so.
I know you probably got to go. Have you ever heard of the term nigga wake-up call?
No.
It is an incident where a person of color forgets that they are of color and are reminded rather brutally by an unexpected act of racism. Have you ever had any of those?
Oh, brother.
I'm just asking. You think you've ever
Well,
had
I'm acutely aware, Charlemagne, that I'm a black person, just as you are a black person. And when Joe Biden insulted you by saying, you ain't really black, we don't know whether or not you want to vote for me or vote for Donald Trump, it seems to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part. How dare this guy come in here and insult you, a black man, and tell you you got to think a certain kind of way? I'm amazed that you weren't mad about that.
I'm not gonna say it upset me, just like I'm not letting you upset me. You know what I mean? I don't tend to get upset over things like that. But what I did say,
well, you just not talk about a nigger wake-up call, and it seemed to me that should have been a wake-up call on your part to have a white guy come in here who also said, by the way, about Mitt Romney. Because he didn't want to put more regulations on Wall Street, going to put y'all back in chains. And Joe Biden has lied for decades about his civil rights record, claiming that he desegregated movie theaters and restaurants in Wilmington, Delaware, when he didn't do any of that. He lied and said that he tried to visit Nelson Mandela during apartheid South Africa. He did not. And he came in here and told you aren't even black unless you think a certain kind of way. It seemed to me that should have been a nigga wake-up call for you, but it wasn't, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, no, for the record, I'm not a Democrat or Republican.
I didn't say you were.
Yeah, I think both.
I don't know what you are. I never even asked you about your party affiliation. Yeah, I'm just saying, but you are black. And to have a white guy come in here and tell you have to say, think a certain kind of way, otherwise you, quote, ain't black? Wow.
How should I have replied to him, you think?
What I just now said, how dare you insult me and tell me I think as a human being, let alone as a black person? I don't tell you how to think, Joe Biden. How dare you come in here and tell me how I should think? I'm going to vote for Donald Trump if I want to vote for Donald Trump. And if I want to vote for Donald Trump, it does not make me not black. 20% of black people, black men, as I said, voted for Donald Trump in 2020. Are they not black now? So only 80% of black men walking around are really black, 20% are not because they voted for Donald Trump? How insulting is that? How condescending is that?
I mean, you're probably right, but I didn't take it in that way.
I did.
As I said to him in that moment, it's just about me wanting something for my people, and I want to know what is he going to do for my people, and not only for my people now, how are you going to atone for the things you've done to my people?
Right.
That's it.
Right, and this is a guy
that called, we don't need more niggers in office. What was he saying? He got that bill of locking up people with drugs. I mean, this guy he's detrimental. He's created these ignorant Negroes on this Breakfast Club. I mean, damn, he's destroyed many families. So is Kamala Harris with her 3 strike rules and everything like that, locking up people for 3 strikes for life. But now they decided, we're just going to let you get away with all kind of strikes. And nothing going to happen.
Joe Biden, who, when he first got into the Senate, hung out with segregationists, talked about how well he got along with them, talked about how he didn't want integration because of a jungle. This guy has made all sorts of insulting things to black people, and his policies right now are hurting black people. Inflation hurts the people at the bottom more than anything else. Letting a bunch of illegal aliens into the border are hurting black people more than anybody else, as I said earlier. He's opposed to school choice when he has his own kids in private school, and we lost a year, almost 2 years of in-school education in California because of COVID that he supported. I mean, this guy has done monstrous things to black people, and then for him to come in here and tell you how you ought to think as a black person, it blew my mind.
As a person objectively who doesn't care about either party, when I just take a step back and I just look at everything that's happening, I see one party that seems still committed to democracy somewhat, and one party who's headed fast towards fascism. That's just my personal opinion. So who do you think I would vote for?
Let's talk about fascism, since I assume you're talking about election denying. In 2000, when George W. Bush won the election over Al Gore, the Democrats, the first week of January 2001, tried to overturn the results in Florida. 2004, George W. Bush gets reelected. Democrats, including Benny Thompson, the chair of the January 6th Committee, Jamie Raskin, a member of the January 6th Committee, joined with 28 other House Democrats and Senator Barbara Boxer to overturn the results in Ohio, claiming without any evidence that the Debo voting machine had been hacked. 2016, January 2017, Democrats challenged more states trying to get the election overturned that elected Donald Trump. Then Donald Trump challenged the first week of January in 2021. Nobody accused them of undermining our republic. Nobody accused them of being fascists. They exercised whatever means they could to try to win the election. I want to remind you that Hillary Clinton advised Joe Biden during the 2020 election, if it is a close election, quote, do not concede under any circumstances, close quote. Donald Trump used whatever legal means he could, advancing some novel legal theories to try to stay in office, and he failed. But I don't blame him for trying.
Yeah, but it's not just election denying. It's the disdain of women in fear of non-standard gender identities and sexual orientation.
Disdain for women.
It's the galvanizing of popular rage against cultural elites. It's nationalism based on dominant, superior race and historic bloodlines. Like, there's a lot of things that Republicans are doing.
Well, what about?
So, Breakfast Club endorses, stands with the LGBTQ. Wow. Stop listening to this bull crap. I don't listen to them. The reason this thing started popping up all over the place, people doing their critiques of it, so I said, let me go do my critique. This is the only time I get to see them because I'm just disgusted.
But what about Joe Biden going to Howard University, as he did recently, giving a commencement speech, Charlemagne, and he said the number one threat to the homeland was white supremacy. Really? The
FBI said that.
The Anti-Defamation League keeps track of how many people are killed by extremists, no matter the race of the extremists, every year. Last year, there were 25. As I said, in 2020, there were 11,000 blacks who were murdered, almost all murdered by other people, not murdered by white extremists. It's a lie to say white extremists is a big problem in America. It's a lie. It's what Democrats do to get black people angry.
The FBI said that.
It's what Democrats.
Fine.
I don't agree with that. The number one threat to the homeland is a large number of people who are engaging in criminal activity. And what Democrats do is tell black people racism, racism, racism. They trot out David Duke or some other facsimile every 4 years to tell black people, vote for us because, after all, we're the party of racial justice, social justice, and equity. And these dastardly people over there, these Republicans, are the party of Jim Crow and slavery, even though it was the Democratic Party that was the party of Jim Crow and slavery.
So why should black people rock with the GOP then? Like, what are the reasons?
Economics?
Yeah.
I had Tavis Smiley and Cornel West on my radio show once, Charlemagne. And I told Tavis and Cornel West that under Ronald Reagan, black adult unemployment fell faster than white adult unemployment. Black Hispanic unemployment fell faster than did white unemployment. Black teenage unemployment fell faster than did white teenage unemployment. Black businesses were created at a rate faster. Their revenues grew at a rate faster. And they both told me that I was wrong and that they would have the data on my desk by Monday. That was 15 years ago. I know the mail is slow, but it seems to me they should have given it to me by now. Again, Donald Trump presided over the best economy ever for black people, lowest unemployment. And it seems to me the number one reason that most people vote is because of the economy. We have had 40-year historic high in inflation. We've had gas prices that are now about 40% more than what they were when Joe Biden came into office. And we have about 7 million illegal aliens in our country. And the bulk of the suffering because of these illegal aliens will be borne by black people living in the inner city. Those are three reasons alone not to vote for the Democratic Party and to vote for the Republican Party. And by the way, I'm not voting for a fishing buddy. It's not because I like Trump or like him personally. I'm voting for policies. And I don't really care whether or not his personality offends people and he does bad tweets. Maybe it might be better for our society if he were more polite. I don't know. I don't care. I'm not voting for a fishing buddy. I'm voting for somebody to keep taxes low, keep regulations low, to secure the borders and keep us out of unnecessary wars.
Would it be fun to have money in a fascist country, though? To be black and have money in a fascist country? Or to be anything other than a white male?
I don't agree this is a fascist country. It's always better to have money than not to have money.
All right. Anything else, Tess?
Well, just a simple question. Have the Republicans done anything that you disagree with, just out of curiosity?
They spend too much. I think taxes are still too high. I think that there are a lot of Republicans that support things like minimum wages. And by the way, Milton Friedman, one of my favorite economists, said the minimum wage is perhaps the most anti-black law in the statute books, close quote. At one time, a black teenager was more likely to have a job than a white teenager until the minimum wage came along and kicked it up and up and up. So there are policies that the Republican Party supports, like minimum wage. Some of them do that I don't like. Also kinds of licensing, unnecessary licensing. I was at an Apple store a few years ago, and this black woman waited on me, and she was very sharp technically. I'm not very technically sharp, and I was very impressed. And I said, have you always been technically sharp? She goes, well, I'm not really. I'm just here because I want to earn enough money to get a license to cut hair. I said, black hair? She said, yes. I said, you don't know how to cut the black hair already? I have black barbers in my family. Everybody learned how to cut hair on their own. She said, well, in California, you have to have a license to get, you have to have a license to open up a shop to cut hair. I said, how much does it cost? She said, $5,000. I said, you need to get a $5,000 license to learn how to do something you already know how to do? What is that? So a lot of the rules and regulations. Okay, fair.
It's hard to get around them systems, no matter how hard you work.
But the system applies to both blacks and whites too. But fair enough, those systems ought to be struck down. So there are lots of things Republicans do that I don't.
Well, it's not just cutting hair. You know that. You know they have to train how to learn with diseases and to make sure your clippers are clean and make sure certain things that you have to follow certain protocols so that you can be a barber, so that you can make sure that the community's safe when you're doing these protocols.
Well, if
does that have to do with paying for a license?
If there weren't government protocols, there'd be other protocols. For example, there's something called the Consumer Reports. That's not government, and it comes out and it talks about cars and what cars are good, what cars are safe. If government didn't do these kinds of things, entrepreneurs would step in and they would have licensing. So there'd be a little sticker on the window when you go to a barber shop, and it would say, "I've been approved by so and so licensing board or organization."
Some of it's bullshit. 5,000 is too much, though. But
there are all sorts of things that we would do if the government was not doing it.
Do you have a black barber?
Yeah, I do.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
Actually, I have a black barber for 25, 30 years. He got cancer, and now the person that owns the shop, who is Latina, cuts my hair.
Okay. I do want to ask you one final question. When do you think systemic racism ended? Since you said it don't exist anymore, when did it end?
I can't come up with a specific time, but Civil Rights Act. Civil Rights Act of 1964, Brown versus Board of Education, the Loving versus Virginia Act that struck down race mixing. You couldn't, for 13 states, you couldn't marry a white woman. Again, I think that when Barack Obama got elected, that was a big deal. When Obama got elected, this is really important, he got elected with a little more than 52% of the vote. He walks into the Oval Office the third week of January. He had a 70% approval. Now, how can that be? How can 15% all of a sudden support this man? It wasn't because they wanted capital gains taxes.
I don't care. Yeah, Barack Obama.
Well, I'm not talking about voting, sir. I'm talking about, and just to be fair, I think Joe Biden and what Joe Biden has did to African Americans, particularly with the war on drugs, was one of the worst things that actually happened to Black people. Just to put that on the record, he too was a part of that system that I'm talking about. Democrats as well. I just try to stay balanced to say that same system it applies on both sides. Democrats and Republicans helped with mass incarceration. Joe Biden led it, wrote it. So we have no problem. Or I have no problem condemning him as a Democrat for what he's done. I'm just talking about institutions versus relations are just two totally different things. And that's just where we, just disagree with that. And that's okay.
Well, we didn't really get into mass incarceration, but most people who are behind bars because they committed a violent crime against somebody else. And
why don't she get into since she knows so much about this institution, why don't she just say it? Say what it is. Why wait for him to say it?
Often the black people who are behind bars committed a violent crime against another black person.
Well, when I'm talking about mass incarceration, I'm not talking about violent crimes. I'm talking about non-violent crimes, particularly the war on drugs. I was very clear in what I said.
I agree with you that I believe that the drug problem should be dealt with as a health problem rather than a criminal justice problem. But most people are not behind bars for using drugs or for dealing drugs. They're behind bars for having committed a violent act against another person.
Sure, but that wasn't what I was talking about. I was very clear when I talked about Joe Biden writing the crime bill and mass incarceration with war on drugs to nonviolent offenders. So that's a different conversation. You're weaving the two together. So we just have a disagreement on institutions versus race relations, and that's okay.
Well, in order for you to go to jail, you have to commit a crime. If you walk down the street,
not always in America.
Well, where are the class action lawsuits, Charlemagne? We have all these black lawyers. Many black people have gone to law school. Where are the class action lawsuits claiming that a bunch of people are behind bars illegally, wrongfully? Where are they?
So you think everybody that's behind bars?
I didn't say that.
Behind bars
I didn't say that. Why don't you answer my question? Where are the class action lawsuits?
Well, you need money to do class action lawsuits.
You've had a black attorney general, Eric Holder. You had back-to-back black attorneys general, Eric Holder and then Loretta Lynch. Why didn't they release a whole bunch of people who are illegally behind bars? Why didn't they do that? You had a black president.
And I criticized them as well. Went on record because actually you're right. He lied and said that he was going to fix the crack cocaine disparity. So I went on record. You're right. And guess what? Guess who he works for? The system. So he's just a blackface that works for the system at the time. So again, we just disagree on systems and institutions versus blackfaces in high places.
Well, the disparity has been rectified. Now you go to jail for dealing powder as you do for dealing crack. And at one time there was a disparity.
No, you go to jail, but the ratio's not the same.
Well, because the dealers are not the same. For example, there are more white people behind bars for drunk driving than there are black people. There are certain categories of crime that whites commit.
Mr. Elder, you're talking
depends on the drug. More whites are behind bars for meth than blacks
You're just
are.
going all over the place, sir. We were talking about, it's very clear.
You said drugs. It depends on the category of drug. It depends on the category of drugs. More whites are involved in meth than blacks.
I gave you the category that I wanted to talk about, and you start talking about drinking. You're just all over the place, Mr. Elder, but it's okay.
More blacks are involved in crack cocaine. More whites are involved in powder. More whites are involved in meth than blacks. Depends on the category of the drug you're talking about.
Right, and I was talking about a very clear category, and I gave you, I told you where I just criticized the black man who was in charge, and you skipped over that and went right to talking about drunk driving. So again, sir, I have no problem with criticizing black Democrats. We do that. Charlemagne does that all the time. It's just the imbalance of understanding that even black faces in high places, even including yours and Democrats, Republicans, just being fair across the board. That's all.
Well, that to me basically is no different than what Joe Biden just did with Charlemagne, which is to tell me as a black person I got to think a certain kind of way, otherwise I'm not black.
And I didn't like that either.
Well, you just did.
I didn't like that either.
You just did. You called me a black face as if I'm supposed to think a certain kind of way.
No,
I said
blackface. I said blackface in high places. I said they're everywhere. You're a blackface. You're in a high place. You're running for president of the United States. That's a high place. You are a blackface, correct? I said so. There's blackface in high places on both sides. So it's just about being fair for me on both sides. I've mentioned
I
three or four Democrats.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah, I mentioned several Democrats that I have a problem with. Several, including Joe Biden. So you don't have to sell us on that. We get that. I'm just saying it also happens on the Republican side. That's all. And black conservatives agree with a lot of your messages, Mr. Elder. But when you're not balanced across the board, it just kind of lands flat. That's all.
Whose cocaine do you think it was in the White House? Since we're talking about drugs.
I have no idea. All I know is that it seems to me it's to be scary that that Secret Service has closed the investigation without identifying a suspect. What other kind of stuff goes in and out of the White House without anybody knowing about it? But I have no idea. I just think it's bizarre that the investigation all of a sudden got closed that fast.
And you think criminal charges should be brought against President Biden, right?
I think there certainly should be an investigation about the pay-for-play stuff that we're hearing. The IRS whistleblowers are saying that they were told to stand down in their investigation. I think there's a double standard going on, as I said earlier. For example, Donald Trump has been indicted for document possession. There is a special counsel investigating Joe Biden for document possession. But his defenders are saying, well, Joe Biden, unlike Donald Trump, turned over the documents readily when they were found out to have them. And if that's the case, why is the investigation still taking so long?
Tell them how they can support your campaign.
Don't really care. Oh, but let's go to this lady to push the point.
When he was president and he was doing like amazing making the country run the right way, but it was like a crime to admit that he was running the out of this. I'm done with that because I realized that there's a lot of robot, dumb, blind motherfuckers walking around that don't realize what's going on. Now, I was one of them people too once upon a time. Until I started doing my own research, which stuff I keep telling y'all to do. Trump is not the enemy, bro. Trump is actually on the right side of the fence. You is just so blind, y'all don't see what the is really going on, bro. Like, most of y'all just watch the news, and that's where y'all get all your information from. The news, when he was walking around telling y'all that that's fake news, it is, y'all. It's propaganda to brainwash y'all, bro. I hate that, like, I'm one of these people now because we are the people that sound crazy. Wait till y'all realize that Trump was never the problem. Oh, my God. It's just that by the time y'all wake up, it be too late. By Make America Great Again hat and wear that around, because I want all smoke. I want to smoke with whoever.
She want all the smoke.
What?
She is, oof. You can imagine how she look without makeup. Ooh, Skeletor. But that's, we've seen two different. We've seen the ignorant Negroes. We've seen supposedly intelligent Negro. I would say that he's more boule because he's one of the gatekeepers. It looks like. I mean, from what he said. I mean, because there is systemic racism. I mean, damn, that's just like that's pretty much like human nature. It is real, it's real. People just hate each other. Sure, our people hate each other. Can't get along for nothing. Can't stop robbing and stealing from each other, killing each other. It's all screwed up. That's why it's just a waste of time. Which the Constitution is not valid anymore. These people, they have these congressional hearings and everything like that, and they just get a couple of minutes and everything, and they say something shocking to get you amped up and everything, but nothing happens. It's all bullshit. But until next time, party people, we'll do it again and again and again. Until next time, y'all have a good night. Shalom. Shalom, you bastages.
I agree.